G'day everyone, I'm the Red Scour, this is Red Scour Gaming. Today is my summary of this particular draft, my 11th draft of, where am I? Wilds of Eldraine. And yeah, I did pretty well with this one, I think. I got 7 wins, only 2 losses. And yeah, as per normal, I'll go through all the cards and see what I think about them. Cheeky House Mouse, I think in this particular draft did pretty good. I didn't get to use Squeak by aspect of it, I think, at all. But especially that last game, actually, I really got to press the attack, which may have just been a little bit of luck, but it did work out pretty well then. Gingerbread didn't get quite as good use out of as I probably hoped for. I sort of just had it just because I knew that sometimes I wouldn't quite have the land I needed, so I'd just get that little extra attack in. I have seen it perform better, but I'm not unhappy with it in this particular draft. Cooped up, got to use 2 or 3 times maybe, which probably I should use a little more often actually, because it's basically taken out my opponent's one big threat that I might otherwise not be able to deal with. Kellen's Lightblades, on the other hand, is take out the small threat, which has certainly worked, and I got to use quite a few times, though. Yeah, there's nothing jumping out at me as far as definitely should have done it a turn earlier or on this creature instead or something like that. Return Triumphant didn't get as much use out of as I probably wanted. I know that this particular uh, deck doesn't have a huge number of creatures that I'd really like to have sacked. Like maybe Voracious Vermin is probably the one, or Greta, I suppose, but you didn't quite get as much use out of it as I have before. Though it might just be a bit of bad luck, maybe, or good luck, because let's face it, it is returned from graveyard. So, Shrouded Shepherd, I think it was only one game, like game 2 or something like that, that I got to use its Cleave Shadows effectively, and I didn't really get to use its ETB terribly well, though, look, I'm not unhappy with it, just, yeah, I didn't quite get great use out of it, but I think it's a good example of a 2/2 creature that, yeah, it's good for 2 mana. There's nothing wrong with it. But it has all those little extra abilities that, okay, it might not win you the game, but it might just give you that edge for one turn or something. So I'm pretty happy with it still. Monstrosity got a bit of use out of. Once again, as I said during the draft, I think it's sort of the stage that I don't mind sacking that creature turn 1, 2 to the block sort of thing. I trade for something bigger, especially with that food token, because he gives you something else to spend mana on a bit later if you need it. Sugar Rush got a little bit of use out of, particularly that last game. That, yeah, look, I've had better use out of it, but it didn't do too badly. Yeah, I'm not super happy with it, but that's all right. Discerning Financier is actually another card that I didn't get great use out of. It's not a bad card. And it does give you that little extra ramp that you might need. And I did sort of have it just because there's maybe a few too many cards that I'd be spending extra mana on. And partly because of that Devouring Sugar more bit, but more about that later. Moment of Valor, I did get some very good use out of, though I didn't quite draw it enough as I probably wanted to. Lord Skitter's Butcher, it was game 5, if I remember correctly, that I got to play it, and I had just enough creatures that my opponent could not block with Menace. So he did very well then, and going wide, I think he does particularly well, because he can either help you go wider or give you a benefit from going wide, whether it's sack a creature, draw a card, or give everything Menace, which, yeah, I've used Menace more than the sack a creature, but that just might be drafting. Voracious Vermin, I've had good success with. In a draft, it's not as good as in, say, Standard or something like that, where you can sack things more readily or something like that. But yeah, he's still pretty good because you only have to lose, say, 1 or 2 creatures, and it's a pretty good way to spend 4 mana. Greta, that one green creature that I splashed for, I think it was the first 4 games that I drew her and just didn't get a chance to play her. But then the rest of the games I drew a forest and just didn't get to draw Greta. So I think I played her once, and it was, yeah, meh. I suppose in hindsight I shouldn't have kept Greta, but I can see why I drafted her. Just didn't work out quite how I wanted it to. Besotted Knight, I think, is another one of those just generally good card. Yeah, sure, you're not going to write home to mum saying, yeah, that was excellent, but yeah, it certainly worked. Devouring Sugarmore is one of those cards that I said during the draft is sort of what I was basing this deck around. I did play it a few times, and it did work very well because I usually had something to sack. A few times it was a creature, a few times it was a food, but geez, I was happy with it, so I'd definitely go with it again. Eric's Tempting Apple. I think it was only once that I got to play it to steal a creature, which I've actually used it in various drafts. I've used it as basically a win con, that you play that, grab your opponent's biggest creature, and get that one last attack in, sort of thing. So it works pretty well, and I drafted again. It probably didn't work quite as well as I have seen it before, but that's all right. Screen Puff is sort of just the big dumb creature, but the fact that it can create, potentially at least, a lot of food tokens, it works really well with Devouring Sugarmore, and I don't think though I got to play Devouring Sugarmore and Scream Puff in the same game, which I'm somewhat disappointed that I didn't get to see that work, but that's all right. And as far as lands, with the power of hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have splashed the green, but I still would have gone Evolving Wild, still pretty happy with it. As far as other cards, Break the Spell looked at, it's one of those cards that, yes, it's very good in the right situation, but I'm not going to sit around waiting for it. Plunge into Winter can give you that extra time, and as I said during the draft, there's a few creatures like Monstrosity in particular that I'm basically just playing them to gain a little extra time, however that might be. So maybe Plunge into Winter instead of Greta, and Greta is sort of the one card I'd definitely take out of here. Maybe a Sugar Rush I'd take out, but yeah, or maybe even a Return Triumphant, but that I've got to be a little bit careful saying that I'm unhappy, if that's the word, with a particular pick, when it might just be the luck of the game, or the luck of the draw, or the management of the situation, because I'm so awesome, aren't I, that I didn't really need it. So yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful saying yes or no to something. Unassuming Sage, I've seen it used pretty well against me, and I have used it once or twice pretty effectively, but just, I'm quite glad that I didn't take it this time. Moment of Valor, maybe I could have grabbed the second one, I suppose, instead of maybe even Ginger Brute, actually, because I didn't get terribly good use out of Ginger Brute. So maybe Moment of Valor? Maybe, yeah. Stockpile Celebrant, look, I'm not unhappy with it, but yeah, I just don't think it would have taken anything up in this particular draft. As far as the blue cards, Ice Wrought Sentry can work pretty damn effectively by itself, actually. Obira's Attendant is also good because it sort of gives you another turn before you can play it, which is fine. But yeah, I don't think I would have splashed blue just for those two. As far as the other black cards, not dead after all. Maybe instead of one of the Return Triumphant, but you do have to be a little bit careful with it, because you do need to do it in response to one of your creatures dying. Whereas Return Triumphant, you can do it sort of whenever. So I suppose I prefer Return Triumphant over Not Dead After All, but yeah, you got to be a little bit careful. Barrow Naughty has its moments, but I think it's a lot better in a Fairy Tribal deck, so I don't think I would have taken it. Rowan's Grim Search, I can't really think of any particular situation where I needed the draw, because most of the time the games were over pretty quickly, or I sort of curved out well enough that I didn't really, yeah, okay, sure, drawing a card's always good for you, but I didn't really need to draw it. So I suppose if I had to take it, maybe Eret's Tempting Apple would have been the card I should have chosen, but yeah, I mean, that's only an if. Dream Spoilers, yeah, once again, really good in the right circumstance, but yeah, just not this particular time. I definitely wouldn't have splashed red for Kindled Heroism. It's good when it's good, but not in this case. And actually, because I was sort of going Abzan for a little while, I could have splashed more green. Maybe Toadstool Admirer instead of Gingerbrute, because it is a little more, at least in the situation I seem to be in this time, it is a bit more long game than Gingerbrute can be, but Gingerbrute can also be just can't be blocked this turn. So yeah, probably Toadstool Admirer. Though maybe I would have gone, if I was going Abzan, Toadstool Admirer instead of Cheeky House Mouse. While I'm not unhappy with Cheeky House Mouse, Toadstool Admirer can be a bit more reliable, can do pretty well by itself, at least compared to Cheeky House Mouse. So yeah, I think I would have gone that, but yeah, I'm certainly not complaining. Titanic Growth is a good combat trick, though I suppose if I'd gone Abzan, I would have used it instead of probably Moment of Valor, because it has similar reactions to the board. Like either a big creature attacks and you use Titanic Growth to kill it, thus to destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, or a big creature attacks you and you chump block with Titanic Growth. So yeah, I suppose if I had to go Titanic Growth, I'd take out Moment of Valor and maybe one of the Sugar Rushes. In fact, probably one of the Sugar Rushes. But yeah, once again, I'm not terribly unhappy that I went Orzhov instead of Abzan. And Verdant Outrider, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have taken just for that. It's a good card, but has to be in the right circumstance. So yeah, overall, yeah, definitely take out Greta and put in probably Plunge into Winter. Yeah, or maybe even Rowan's Grim Search, but yeah, it's a little bit clutching at straws there. Anyway, thanks for watching that one, and yeah, once again, sorry about my voice. I have been a bit very crook the last few days, so yeah, excuse me. But anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully learn from my mistakes, and see you next time.